Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover here today. So as always, before we dive into the topics, if you end up enjoying the video or finding it informative, be sure to leave it a like and consider subscribing to the channel if you're new. We're starting here with the announcement of the 30-year anniversary PlayStation product lineup. This is something that I think a lot of people were hoping Sony would do, and they really did go all out here. So the big thing that I think a lot of people are going to try to get their hands on, but unfortunately will likely be unsuccessful in doing so, is the PlayStation 5 Pro console 30th anniversary limited edition bundle. I mean, this is the big one here, where it's an entire bundle that comes with everything PS1 themed, PS5 Pro, DualSense Edge, regular DualSense, and a charging station. And on top of that, they only made 12,300 units in total, and they're all numbered. So this is why I think most people are going to be unsuccessful in trying to acquire this. It's also worth noting that Sony did not reveal the price points for any of these products yet, so we have to keep that in mind as well. But yeah, this is the big one, again, that I think a lot of people are going to try to get their hands on, but likely not be able to. But on top of that bundle, they're also announcing the PlayStation 5 Digital Edition 30th Anniversary Limited Edition bundle, which is just a regular PS5 Slim, but again, PS1 themed. And it's worth noting it does come with a gray colored disk drive cover as well, if you do have a disk drive to attach to it. But on top of that, they have a PS1 themed PlayStation Portal. You can buy the PS1 themed DualSense Edge separately, as well as the just regular PS1 themed DualSense controller. And yeah, again, Sony went all out here, even with the packaging of these products kind of resembling the original PS1 packaging. Really love to see them doing something like this. I honestly thought that maybe at most we were going to get like a PS1 themed DualSense and a couple of like gray PS1 themed covers that you could buy. But instead, Sony really just went, you know what, let's take the entire product line and just make it resemble the PlayStation 1. So let me know in the comments if you are planning to try to acquire any of these products. I don't know how limited the rest of the products are going to be. Like, we know the PS5 Pro bundle is going to be extremely limited. But when it comes to the regular PS5 bundle, as well as things like the PS Portal and the DualSense Edge, I don't know. We're going to have to find out, but just let me know if you're planning on getting any of these. Moving on to the next topic, we have a report from Push Square on the sales of the PlayStation 5 versus the Xbox Series consoles. They say here the buttoned-up folks over at the Wall Street Journal recently published a report on the current state of console gaming, and perhaps unsurprisingly, the PS5 has a commanding lead over its main rival, the Xbox Series. The situation looks completely insurmountable for Microsoft at this point and is unlikely to change, regardless of how many rakes Sony continues to step on. Microsoft remains famously tight-lipped about Xbox sales figures, but WSJ has access to marketing intelligence firm Aldora Intelligence to come up with the numbers. As we enter the 5th year of the current console generation, Sony has sold 61.7 million PS5s as of June 2024. Microsoft has moved approximately 28.3 million Xbox Series consoles, which the folks over at Tweaktown put at a rate of almost 3-to-1, outpacing the lead gained during the PS4 and Xbox One era. With the contentious PS5 Pro on the horizon, this rate will only increase, although at what pace remains to be seen. Looking at those stark little graphs, it is little wonder Microsoft is trying for a paradigm shift to redefine gaming, as WSJ puts it. As far as we know, the plan is to keep generating revenue through subscriptions and catering to what was formerly seen as the competitors' platforms where possible. So this is definitely not the most surprising data, but it's interesting to kind of get an update here and to see that the pace at which the PlayStation 5 is beginning to outsell the Xbox Series consoles is actually outpacing what we saw the PS4 do to the Xbox One last generation. So Yeah, we'll have to continue to monitor this. I don't necessarily think it's going to change. The thing I'm most interested in at this point is not necessarily the competition between the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series consoles, because I think it's pretty clear by this point that Microsoft checked out, right? They're not going to try to catch PlayStation or Nintendo. I think they made that abundantly clear. But what I'm most interested in seeing is how the PS5 does, right? We know that the PS5 Pro is coming, and that will likely boost hardware sales to a certain extent. But I'm just really curious to see if, PS5 sales either continue at a good pace for the remainder of this generation and it hits the 100 million sold mark, no problem, like the PS4 did, or if maybe they're going to start to slow down for whatever reason. It's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. But moving on to the next topic, we have an update regarding Palworld. This is something that I don't necessarily think surprised anybody, but the timing of it maybe is what kind of caught people a little bit off guard. Being reported by Push Square, it says Sony will be keeping a close eye on the courtroom over the coming weeks, as Palworld has been struck by a Nintendo lawsuit overnight. Nintendo released a statement declaring that it had filed a patent infringement lawsuit on September 18th, seeking compensation for damages. It did not explicitly state which patent rights it believes Palworld infringes upon. It's also interesting that it's followed this legal path as opposed to one involving copyright, although it's clearly spent the best part of a year building its case and has clearly determined this is the strongest path to victory. In a statement, Pocket Pair said it's unaware of the specific patents that were accused of infringing upon, and we've not been notified of such details. Pocket Pair is a small indie game company based in Tokyo. Our goal as a company has always been to create fun games. We will continue to pursue this goal because we know that our games bring joy to millions of gamers around the world. It also argued that fighting this court case will have implications for the game. It's truly unfortunate that we will be forced to allocate significant time and matters unrelated to game development due to this lawsuit. However, we'll do our utmost for our fans and to ensure that the indie game developers are not hindered or discouraged from pursuing their creative ideas. We apologize to our fans and supporters for any worry or discomfort that this news has caused. All of this will have implications for PlayStation, as it was widely expected a PS5 version of the game would be announced at Tokyo Game Show next week. Gamatsu spotted that the game was due to be on display for Sony's system at the Japanese convention in the coming days. Whether this lawsuit will alter those plans remains to be seen. So it's also worth pointing out here that Sony Music subsidiary Aniplex has been investing heavily in Palworld, and they came to some kind of investment agreement. So, it's going to be an interesting situation to see how this unfolds. I will say, people are kind of pointing out that Nintendo seems to be really stooping to a new low here to, maybe stop Palworld in its tracks by specifically filing a patent infringement lawsuit. Like the idea that certain game mechanics have been patented by Nintendo and therefore nobody else can use them. This is a point of contention in the games industry, this idea that these companies can actually patent mechanics and stop other developers from using those mechanics and kind of abusing that to just basically mitigate any potential competition. It is pretty garbage, honestly, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out. So, yeah, there's no denying that Palworld basically copies Pokemon in a lot of ways, but it's very interesting to me that this is the path Nintendo chose to go down. You have to imagine, because they waited this long, they believe they have a strong case here. So, yeah, we'll see what happens here. I'll keep you guys updated. But we're going to move on to the next topic here, which talks about a Days Gone remaster. This is being reported by WCCF Tech. It seems like the not-so-exciting PlayStation remaster that was recently teased by Jeff Grubb could in fact be Days Gone. The rumor comes from VGC's Jordan Midler, who joked that Days Gone's director John Garvin, who recently criticized Sony for putting protagonist Deacon St. John sitting on a beach in a new Astrobot game, would, quote, lose his mind at this. For context, Garvin has been critical of Sony, which did not give its green light to make a sequel despite more than decent sales and reception. Developer Bend Studio is now working on a brand new IP that features online multiplayer and includes some of the open world systems seen in Days Gone. But at this point, if you look at the tweets put out by Jordan Midler, it's pretty clear that he's saying the other remaster that was rumored to be announced alongside the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster is a Days Gone remaster. And obviously, a lot of people are going to be very upset about this. Again, to me, it really comes down to, number one, who's doing the remaster? Where are these resources coming from? And number two, will there be an upgrade path? Again, if it's just developers that kind of need something to do that are not necessarily directly involved with the development of this new IP just yet, that's fine. If there's a $10 upgrade path, that's fine. But the thing I really want to focus on here is, does this signal a potential sequel, right? Does this signal that Sony may actually end up considering making a sequel to Days Gone? The reason why I say this is because a lot of people do not know that a Days Gone movie is in the works. This was announced a couple of years ago, and they actually got like an Oscar-winning writer to actually partake in this movie. And so it's kind of a big deal that they're making this movie. But now we're hearing it might get a remaster. You know, Sony, for those who don't know, they're all about games that offer franchise potential, games that can become well-known franchises. And it's unlikely that Sony would make a movie for Days Gone and then simultaneously do a remaster for PS5 and PC and then just decide we're done with it, we're not doing anything more. To me, this seems to indicate that they see a future for Days Gone. But things do get messy when you consider that Sony Bend is working on a new IP, and I have to imagine that new IP is still quite a ways away from being finished. So, I don't know. You know, for me, I really enjoyed Days Gone, and I was disappointed to see that Sony seemingly abandoned it. But the fact that they're willing to remaster it and make a movie tells me that, hold on, there still might be hope for a future for Days Gone. But yeah, you know, it's another remaster, not necessarily what people want to hear, but let me know your thoughts on that. We're moving on to the final topic, which is an update on the Concord situation. Being reported by VGC, says the game director of Concord is reportedly stepping down from his role as the game's future remains to be decided. Ryan Ellis told staff at Firewalk Studios last week that he would no longer be serving as the game director on Concord and would instead be stepping down into a support role, according to Kotaku. Citing 3 sources familiar with the move, the publication says Ellis was emotional when initially speaking to staff after the game's launch, when it was clear that it was going to be a major failure. Ryan deeply believed that the project and bringing players together through the joy in it, one former developer told Kotaku, regardless of there being things that could have been done differently throughout development, he's a good human and full of heart. Earlier this month, Sony announced plans to take Concord offline, pull the game from sale, and offer refunds to all players who bought it just 2 weeks after launch. The news followed reports that the PS5 and PC game may have sold as few as 25,000 copies across both platforms. Concord fans, we've been listening closely to your feedback since the launch of Concord on PS5 and PC, and we want to thank everyone who has joined the journey aboard the North Star. This is what Ellis said at the time. And so it's also worth pointing out here that something else the Kotaku article highlights is that developers have no idea what to expect. Some developers are actually leaving the studio preemptively, assuming it's just going to get shut down. Some are waiting to see what the severance packages may be. And some, I think, are maybe holding out hope that maybe, just maybe, Sony will do something more with this. But yeah, it seems pretty clear to me what the future of this game is, and that is there is no future for it. And as for the future of the studio, I mean, it's worth noting, the article also points out this is one of the more expensive studios that Sony has. So if Sony really can't figure out a clear path forward for them, they're likely going to shut them down. So we'll see what ends up happening. I will continue to keep you guys updated. But guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, leave it a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.